Most men step into relationships with blindfolds on, thinking they're about to experience something pure and lasting, but in reality, they're walking straight into a carefully disguised illusion. They confuse the signals, mistaking attention for genuine affection, validation for loyalty, and intimacy for true love. It feels real in the moment because she showers him with warmth, charm, and attention. She mirrors his interests, laughs at his jokes, and makes him believe he's the only man in her world. That stage is intoxicating, and it hooks him quickly because it offers something he's been craving: approval, acceptance, and the sense that he finally found someone who understands him. But the painful truth is that this stage is not permanent. It's bait, a mask, the opening act designed to draw him in deeper. The man, caught in this haze, begins to open himself up fully. He lets down his guard, lowers his standards, and shifts his focus from building his mission to keeping her happy. He assumes that the way she treats him in the beginning is who she really is, when in fact, it's only her best self, the version meant to pull him closer. And because he wants to believe so badly, he stops questioning her motives. He stops noticing the subtle signs that the dynamic is about to shift. He thinks giving more will solidify the bond, but in reality, it only sets the stage for what's coming next. The illusion blinds him to the rules of the game. Instead of keeping his power and leading with strength, he hands it over in exchange for her approval. And once that happens, respect begins to fade. What felt like love was never unconditional, it was conditional on how well he played the role she set for him. Once the haze of the beginning fades and the illusion has done its job, the slow drain begins. It doesn't happen all at once, and that's what makes it so dangerous. At first, her requests seem harmless. She wants more of your time, more of your attention, more of your energy. Maybe she suggests you skip a workout to spend the evening with her. Maybe she pushes you to cancel plans with your friends. Maybe she questions why you're so focused on your goals when she feels like she should come first. None of it seems unreasonable in the moment, so you comply. You think you're showing love, proving your devotion, and strengthening the relationship. What you don't see is that each small concession is another step away from yourself. Little by little, you begin to abandon your mission. The time you once dedicated to your craft, your discipline, and your purpose is now diverted to managing her emotions. What used to give you energy now feels like a distraction, and yet you continue giving because you don't want to disappoint her. That's the trap. You think keeping her happy will secure her loyalty, but it only teaches her that you are willing to bend. And the moment she senses that, the respect begins to erode. The man who was once firm, focused, and unshakable now appears malleable. The very qualities that drew her in, your drive, your confidence, your commitment to something larger than her, start to fade, replaced by a man who orbits around her moods. She doesn't notice it consciously at first, but instinctively, she feels it. You're no longer the man she admired, you're becoming the man who serves. And that shift marks the beginning of the drain that never stops until you wake up to it. After enough time of bending and giving, what once felt like generosity now turns into expectation. The thoughtful gestures, the sacrifices, the extra effort you once gave freely are no longer appreciated. They become the standard. She no longer thanks you for the time you set aside, she demands more. She no longer lights up at the gifts or surprises, she begins to see them as the bare minimum. What used to bring her joy now barely registers. This is when entitlement begins to creep in, and with it, her respect starts to vanish. She begins to measure you not by who you are, but by how much more you can give. If you fall short, the accusations come. You're distant. You're neglectful. You don't love her enough. Those words cut deeply because you've already given so much, yet somehow, it still isn't enough. Instead of pulling back, most men panic in this stage. They double down. They work harder to regain the affection she once gave so easily. They overcompensate, thinking that if they can just give more, sacrifice more, or prove themselves harder, she will return to the warmth she showed in the beginning. But the truth is cruel, the warmth was never meant to last. That affection was the mask, the bait. And now that you've revealed yourself as willing to trade everything for her approval, she no longer sees you the same way. The man she once admired for his strength and focus has been replaced by a man who exists only to please. And the harsh reality is this: a woman cannot love what she doesn't respect. The more you try to buy back her affection, the colder she becomes, because in her eyes, the version of you she desired no longer exists. By the time the discard arrives, most men never see it coming. They're blindsided, confused, and devastated because to them, it feels sudden. One day she was there, the next day she's gone. But the truth is that she didn't leave in an instant, she left in stages. She began walking away during the extraction, when you gave more than you could afford. She left a little more during the entitlement, when nothing you did was ever enough. She was already gone during the coldness, when her affection dried up and her patience ran thin. By the time she physically walks out of your life, she's been emotionally detached for months. The discard itself is brutal because it strips you bare. You're left with nothing to show for everything you poured in. Your time, your energy, your focus, your finances, all invested, all gone. She doesn't look back, and why would she? In her mind, you're no longer the man she respected. You're a version of yourself that bent too far, gave too much, and lost his edge in the process. And so she leaves without remorse, often walking directly into the arms of someone else while you're still trying to understand what happened. The pain of the discard isn't just about losing her, it's about losing yourself. You realize you abandoned your mission, your vision, and your strength in a desperate attempt to keep her. You look around and the world you built has slowed, your friendships have faded, and your confidence is shattered. That's why the discard cuts so deeply. It's not simply that she's gone, it's that she took pieces of you with her, and now you're left staring at the ruins of a man who thought giving everything was the way to win her love. The reason so many men stay trapped in this cycle isn't because they're weak, but because they're addicted and afraid. Addiction keeps them chasing the ghost of who she was in the beginning. That early stage, when she was warm, affectionate, and overflowing with attention, becomes their drug. They convince themselves that if they just give a little more, sacrifice a little more, she'll return to that version of herself. But that version was never real. It was temporary. It was the mask. And yet men cling to it with desperation, ignoring every sign that it's gone for good. They overlook the disrespect, excuse the coldness, and tolerate the contradictions because they're hooked on a memory. Then comes fear, the silent leash around a man's neck. Fear of being alone. Fear of starting over. Fear of looking in the mirror and facing the emptiness when she's no longer there. Women sense this fear, even if they don't consciously exploit it. Instinctively, they use it to their advantage. They keep him close enough to stop him from walking away, but distant enough to remind him she's slipping. That push and pull keeps him trapped, giving more and more just to avoid the pain of loss. And society makes it worse. From childhood, men are fed the script that love means sacrifice, that a good man always puts her first, that devotion at any cost is noble. Movies glorify the man who suffers endlessly just to win her back, but in reality, that man isn't strong, he's broken. Love without respect is slavery, not partnership. Yet most men never question the script. They follow it blindly, repeating the same mistakes, until they find themselves drained, discarded, and wondering why their loyalty was never enough. The only way to break free from the cycle is to learn self-value, because until a man sees himself as the prize, he will always hand over his worth for scraps of attention. A man who doesn't know his own value will keep chasing hers, making her approval his source of identity. He'll put her moods above his mission, her happiness above his vision, and when she leaves, as she often will, he's left with nothing. But the man who learns his worth cannot be played. He doesn't measure himself by her smiles, her texts, or her attention. He measures himself by the empire he's building, the mission he's pursuing, and the discipline he maintains when no one is watching. That kind of man is unshakable, because no woman's withdrawal can collapse a world she didn't build. This doesn't mean rejecting women, it means refusing to abandon yourself for them. It means seeing red flags and walking away the first time respect fades. It means living in abundance so that no single woman can ever be your only source of happiness. When you've built your body, your wealth, your friendships, and your purpose, you cannot be left with nothing, because your foundation remains intact. And paradoxically, this is the very frame that draws women in. Women are drawn to men who don't need them but choose them from strength. When you stand in that power, the entire dynamic changes. She can test, she can withdraw, she can even threaten to leave, but none of it matters, because you know losing her is never the end. Losing yourself is. That mindset is what separates the men who stay broken from the men who rise. And once you rise, brother, you can never be played again.